we have some big news from Amazon, who just made a big play into generative AI. And it's a play that immediately makes them a very serious contender if they weren't before in the AI arms race with all these announcements we're hearing from Google, Microsoft, and the open AIs of the world. So they announced a few things related to generative AI capabilities being baked right into Amazon Web Services, AWS, their kind of flagship cloud product. And these announcements include something called Amazon Bedrock, which is going to now make foundational text and image models from companies like Anthropic and Stability AI accessible to AWS customers right in the platform. So Bedrock will actually help customers find the right model for their needs, including some that Amazon has also created, as well as customize models securely with their own data and then integrate those models into their own applications. So according to AWS, this ability to customize models is one of Bedrock's most important capabilities. So customers only need to provide a few labeled examples to fine tune models to their specific needs. So the AWS gives this following marketing related example. They say, imagine a content marketing manager who works at a leading fashion retailer and needs to develop fresh, targeted ad and campaign copy for an upcoming new line of handbags. To do this, they provide Bedrock a few labeled examples of their best performing taglines from past campaigns, along with the associated product description. And Bedrock will actually automatically start generating effective social media, display ad, and web copy for the new handbags. So, as part of the announcement, Amazon also announced some advancements in its AI infrastructure that it sells to customers, as well as the general availability of its Code Whisperer tool, which, like other tools on the market, aids developers by generating code. So this was a major announcement that got a ton of play among in AI circles. Paul, just at a high level, why does this move by Amazon matter?
There's a few thoughts I have on this one. The first is the more I've been thinking about this, I feel like the LLM, the large language model, is the new CRM. Like, and not replacing the CRM, but in terms of the importance to the tech stack for the last 10, 15 years. Again, for people who don't know my background and Mike's background, I built HubSpot's first partner agency. So back in 2007, I had started my agency in 2005. We became HubSpot's first partner in 2007. And then I built and eventually sold that agency. But the foundation of that agency was content creation, driving growth through content creation, and then the infusion of CRM into companies. So we've like last 12, 15 years of our lives were spent um, helping organizations with their tech stack, specifically foundationally on the CRM. And the more conversations I'm having with large enterprises, which will trickle down to the smaller enterprises, smaller companies in the months and years ahead, the language model is it. Like everyone is trying to figure out, what do we do? Do we build our own language model? Do we use open AIs? Do we go to Cohere? Do we go to Anthropic? Do we use Stability? Do we build on top of Jasper or Writer or Hyper? Right? Like there are so many options right now, and so few people in organizations that have any idea what to do about it. So even organizations that have, top-notch CIOs and data teams and business intelligence teams, large language models are new to them. And one of the challenges is the horizontal application of it. So this isn't a marketing thing. This is a marketing, sales, service, finance, HR. Like, as we look at the infusion of what Microsoft 365 is going to do with Copilot and what Google's going to do with Workspace, it's bringing large language models into every aspect of the organization. And so I feel like the large language model is going to be as fundamental to the tech stack as a CRM has been for the last 10 to 15 years. So that kind of is like my main thing. And I'm getting questions every day from large enterprises asking for introductions to these language model companies or the application layer companies, and asking our opinion on what should they even do, like how should they move forward with language models. So that's one kind of thought. The other is I saw, I don't remember who put this on Twitter, or maybe I don't know, at this point maybe it was just like a thought I had, I have no idea. But Amazon is the everything store, and they basically became the everything store for language models.
Mm.
This is Amazon's model. Like, you can use ours, you can buy the Amazon product, or You can buy from the other people. And maybe the Amazon language model will be cheaper than the other ones because they can do that. But this is the Amazon model. And I think it's really smart. I think it will work. I think Amazon stock price jumped the day they did this quite a bit, and I could see this being a major play for them. So I mean, I think if you're an enterprise and you're trying to think about what to do with large language models, you have to now look at AWS and say, okay, is that the right play for us? Because we have diversity of models we can choose from. These foundational models, we don't have to pick just one. There's open source models in there. There's some custom, proprietary models in there. And the reality is, there's probably in your organization, you likely may not have a single language model, foundational model. You probably will have kind of a blend of these things, at least for the foreseeable future. So yeah, I mean, I think if you're a big enterprise, your first calls are where they've always gone. You're going to call Microsoft, you're going to call Google Cloud, and you're going to call Amazon AWS, and you're going to say, what do you got? How are the large language models structured? And then a quick side note, I actually recently got outreach from Google offering a significant, it was like $250,000 in credits
Mm.
to use their AI in their cloud. And I was like, oh, that's the model. So like if you think about Microsoft, Amazon, Google, I think what's going to happen is they're going to be giving away like credits or time to get you into using their language models. So it's going to be a really tricky period right now moving forward for people in kind of the buying seats and organizations that have to figure this stuff out. But major player, major news, it's going to change the way people think about and buy large language models.
And it's probably worth noting for audience members that are just starting to get caught up on what's possible here is the fact that, with the advancements in generative AI, there's really no foreseeable future where your company is not using some type of generative AI in some context moving forward. So as companies start looking into the technology, the reason we get these questions about custom models is because all of these companies, especially large enterprises, see the immediate value in saying, okay, I don't just want a generic language model, though sometimes that fits their use case. I want one that is privately and securely using my own data to customize the model to my brand standards, voice, editorial guidelines, whatever, even our specific data. So we're getting into this world where it's much, much easier now for brands to access that enterprise grade model customization because sometimes, at least historically, some of the vendors have not had that out of the box. So can you talk just really briefly about, why is this ability to customize models just so critical for these companies moving forward?
Yeah, it's the future of how every organization will use these models. You can't like, I mean, just a real simple example is you brought up like privacy and security. You can't put private data into ChatGPT. It's why we
Mhm,
previously talked about, Italy shutting it down. And there was the example we used. Was it Samsung? I think maybe in the last episode we
mhm,
talked about. They were putting like confidential meeting notes into ChatGPT and asking it to summarize it. Like, you just can't have that stuff. Now, you could choose to use the APIs from OpenAI as like you could build on top of that. So, if you're comfortable with OpenAI, you could do this on top of there, but you could go to Cohere or Anthropic, or you could go to Writer, who's recently announced their own language models, like
mhm.
variations of them, which APIs are open to. Jasper, I think last week announced APIs to their model. So it's like it's a really confusing space at the moment, but fundamentally, you have proprietary data. You want to tune these models on that data, whether it's for internal or external use cases, and you want to be highly confident in the privacy and security of that data and how these models work within your organization. So that's basically the use case. So any organization that cares about the privacy and protection of its data is going to want to have kind of closed systems where they're using these APIs maybe from different models, but then they're building on top of it. It doesn't seem like building your own models from the ground up, like Bloomberg was that the example we used.
Mhm, yep.
Most organizations are not going to have the resources to build their own large language models from the ground up. They're likely going to start with either an open source model from Stability AI or Hugging Face or wherever it's going to be from, or they're going to pull the APIs from one of these proprietary models. It's going to be very limited, and honestly, like the rate of return of building your own model it's just the incentive isn't going to be there. It's going to be way fast. Again, go back to the CRM. You need a CRM. Is it better to build your own or just use HubSpots or just
Mhm.
use Salesforce? Like in most cases, people are going to build on top for speed and for innovation purposes.